Welcome in. I'm Kimberly. I'm so glad you're here tonight. This is our fun Thursday night live. Tonight we have a wonderful guest, Candia Sanders. She's a fabulous intuitive. But before we get started, if you're enjoying this content, go ahead and click that subscribe button and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos. And if you would rather listen than watch, you can now find us on all podcast platforms, Spotify, iTunes, wherever you get your podcasts. Type in Journey to the New Earth and you'll find us there. And the last thing is if you want to keep track of what's happening around the planet, but it feels a little overwhelming, and I don't blame you, you might want to sign up for our Friday morning email newsletter. It's coming out tomorrow morning. The link is in the description box down below. Every Friday morning, we send out a very short, very sweet, but informative email newsletter with the information we think is important about the changes on the planet. Super easy to sign up, super free. The link is in the description box down below. I think you're going to love it. And with that, I want to welcome in our fabulous guest this evening, Candia Sanders. How are you?
I am great. Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me on your show again.
Oh gosh, your video went up yesterday. It's gotten a lot of great comments and it was a wonderful chat. And I can't wait to dive in with you today. I have so many more questions. First of all, everything good? You had a fun day? I know you did some
I
readings
had a great
today.
day. Only, you know what, you may have to take over for just a second because I shared with you I have a dog and a cat, and my dog is going crazy right now. Of course, he has to bark right now because I came on the show. So if you don't mind giving me 2 minutes, I'm going to run and I'll
Absolutely.
let
Absolutely.
you don't hear him in the back, and my neighbors don't get a little cranky with me. I'll be right back. Sorry.
Okay. All right. Candy's going to run and take care of a couple of stuff. This is an interactive show. So if you have questions tonight, go ahead and put them in the chat. I'll be monitoring the chat and bringing over the questions for Candia if you have anything you'd like to ask. She really primarily works as a medical intuitive, but her ability to see into the broader spiritual world is pretty spectacular. And we're going to find out more about that tonight. So if you have questions, put them over in the chat. We'll try to get to all the questions this evening. Other than that, if there are guests that you would like to see on the show, absolutely let me know. You can either put it in the comments below a video, you can put it over in the chat, and we'll definitely try on getting them. We do have live scheduled on Thursday evening at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for the rest of the summer. It's kind of a fun little summer thing that we're doing. So we'll be coming on Thursday evenings, just like this format. You'll be able to check in and ask questions and that sort of thing. So really, really happy about that. Another thing that you might want to start taking a look at is following the work of Cliff High. If you don't know who Cliff High is, you can find him over on X. And he's been really doing a lot of work with what is his WebBot data. If you're not familiar with that, you can do some research into Cliff High. You can also find him on Substack. Why I'm bringing this up is that he is predicting a big event. We don't know what kind of event yet. It's just an emotional spike in the data that he scrapes from the web around the middle of July. And it's an interesting prediction in that the tension values for that area, for that time in July, are really, really high. And then Dick Algier, the remote viewer, probably one of the premier remote viewers on the planet, and the Future Forecasting Group, which is Dick's group, they did a whole remote viewing of the event that Cliff is predicting through the WebBot data. Now, I am a member of Dick Algier's site, thefutureforecastinggroup.com. If you're interested in remote viewing, I can tell you they've done a great job with that site. It's really fun and interactive, and it's the type of site where you can, it's almost like Facebook where you can post and people comment. So there's a real sense of community there, and you get the remote viewing data. It's all recorded into videos as well on the Future Forecasting Group, and it's really well done. If that's of interest to you, it's a membership site, so you do have to pay for it. So it's not free. But what I can say is if remote viewing and the whole concept of being able to see into different timelines is interesting to you, you might want to check it out. So, Candy is back.
I am back.
How are you? Good. You know what's funny is I am in my studio. I have a dog and a cat. Candy are like and I are like twins. I mean, we were
We
born a
are.
couple of months apart. We were pregnant at the same time. We both have a dog and a cat. I have to put a kettlebell in front of the door of my studio so my cat doesn't break in
Yeah,
while I'm filming.
I believe that.
Yeah, yeah. So let's get started tonight. And the thing I want to kick off with is what we're all, oh my gosh, we're kind of all focusing on, at least those people who are paying attention. And I'll start off the topic with a story. I was out to lunch with a girlfriend today, and we were sort of talking about world events and how things are just so tough right now. Nobody's happy. Everybody's, having a challenging time, or a lot of people are having a challenging time, just making ends meet and the constant disappointments in the way our systems are being run. And she felt like nothing's ever going to change. It's just going to keep going like this, and there's going to be more rotten people born, and they're going to grow up to be rotten adults and do rotten things. And she said, "It's just going to continue to be like this." So she feels like this is just the human condition. I feel a little bit differently, but I would like to find out from you, because you have such a broad intuitive ability. What do you think is going on the planet? And give us the big picture. I'm interested in the big picture.
First of all, I'm going to compliment you on Cliff because I think Cliff's the Einstein of today. He's out there. He's wild. He's wonderful. And he wrote a blog, I think it's been a couple of weeks ago now, that was just so spot on with everything. And it was very optimistic. And that's the challenge today. So many people go down the negative side instead of staying on the positive side. And that's how we create where we're going. And this event that they're talking about, I think you and I talked about this yesterday a little bit about the fact that we could have timelines split, and that's, the good guys are going this way and the other guys not so good are going over there. That's a possibility, but there are thousands of possibilities. There are so many negative things coming up, but to me, all this stuff coming to the surface is really positive because then you can, it's like, the clutter in your closets, when it starts to get too much, you have to clean it out. And that's what's happening to me on the planet. Is everything's coming up where we can go, what, I don't like that. I don't want to do that anymore. Let's shift it over here. I see it as a positive cleaning house, spring cleaning. And but see, I'm the eternal optimist. My glass is always full. It's never half full even. And so to me, everything that we're doing right now is a positive. We've got so many great people on the planet. I'm going to give you a couple stories. A man I recently met at the dog park. I have a big dog. Went to the dog park, and he and his wife moved to our area a couple years ago, but he also still has a place in Washington. So we started talking. We had all these things in common. It was really fun, and we started talking about geology because I'm fascinated by geology. I had mentioned a man. I'd recommend this to anybody. Look up Randall Carlson. The man's brilliant. And so we were talking about those kinds of things. He knocked on my door. He knew which development I lived in. He recognized my car, and he dropped off a $30 geology book on Oregon. I'm going, oh my God. Just out of the kindness of his heart. That doesn't happen every day. But the point is, there are so many good people on the planet, and the more we believe in that, the more that it shows up in our lives. And so the more, and we'll use your girlfriend as an example, you focus on those things that woe is me, and I realize so much of that, they're just patterns, they're just habits. It's what we do, it's how we've been trained. And it takes a good kick in the ass basically to get out of that, to say, no, I'm not going to think that. And my recommendation, I know this is more specific to individuals rather than the big picture, but this is how we change the planet, is to be the Sherlock Holmes of our own thoughts, our own mind. And then when we see ourselves going down that negative path, we bring it back to center and go, oh, but there's a positive in that. And when we do that, then it shifts, and then our reality changes, and the neighbor's reality changes because you shifted. And then that's, it's like cleaning out the clutter. Then we can change the planet. The more we focus on that, the more we're going to get the earth that we want. And it takes dedication, it takes practice, it takes discipline, it takes repetition to do this. For me, I've been doing it for so long that it's just easy. And it's speaking of easy, it's easy to get caught in the negativity between the news, between, even the alternative news can be negative. And you just feel like,
Yeah. But I can see as a human how you can feel like, oh my gosh, this has just been going on for decades and nothing ever happens and no one ever gets, you know, what's coming to them or that, nothing ever happens. I can see as a human how it could be easy to feel that way. I think that's where the strength comes in, the inner strength coming in to keep searching for that better feeling, that higher vibration. That's, what's the gift in the lesson. And I agree with you in that it's kind of exciting to me that all this yucky stuff is getting exposed
oh,
because then we can clean it out.
absolutely. That's how we change it. And by you and I talking and sharing that with others, and then they get excited, excitement, joy, fun, grace, uh, staying in empathy rather than sympathy, because then we get pulled into the story. Be the observer of the situation and go, okay, Washington D.C. is a mess. So what can we do? Okay, here's something else. I want to give you. Sorry, I'm segueing, but this is how we change the planet. What do we do with the bigger picture? Because there's a lot of negativity going on. We need to go, and I can get real specific, and probably shouldn't because I don't know what will get banned and what won't. So I won't go too specific. But what we can do, because I'm so proactive, is when you feel like you've been overwhelmed by something, or you're sad, or you're angry, whatever, imagine a ball in front of you with that frequency, that energy. And we talked about this before about transmuting that energy. So you send it love and light, you grab it, hold it, and then go like this and sprinkle it over Washington, D.C., sprinkle it over every capital, because state governments need help too, city governments, you name it. And I've actually caught this in the classes that I've had when we've done this as a group, and then we send it to Washington D.C. as an example. The next day in the news, there was a positive shift. As just one example. So if we do those things, there's nothing we can't accomplish. Because again, if we continue to focus on oh, woe is me, and the world is going down the tubes in a hell, handbasket, then it will. And that reality will continue to slide over there. However, if we do this, that's how we shift this. So
Yeah.
I see this question about the July event. I have a feeling, these are just always my opinions and my feelings, is that the July event will be individual as well as collective, meaning that
Oop.
yeah, lost you for a second.
Yeah.
In that negative spin, or you're caught in it, or you're supposed to, because that's your soul's journey, then it will impact you. If it's not in your spectrum, in your karmic fields, because we all have collective or individual karmic paths underneath the umbrella of the entire, sorry, I can't just sit here and not use my hands, it's what I do, that when we're in that space, then those events can impact us. Now, could it be something to do with the sky and the stars? Possibly. I haven't had any real big, oh, this is going to, rock the socks off all of us. I do believe that we have solar flares coming our direction that can impact us in the summertime. Grids can go down. Now, on a practical level, because I have a very practical side, our electrical grids were bad 20 years ago. Right. And now they want us all to go to electrical. And then if everybody starts using their electrical vehicles and they plug in, and then the system goes and burns, that I can do. I can't see that happening. That is on a practical side. And I'm going, yeah, that's a strong possibility for me. However, you and I talked about this before, is we've got all these new energies coming our way. And that's where I put my energy. And when that energy goes that direction, it's like, oh, they're going to come our way, like hovercrafts and plasma energy and free energy and all those good things, so that we're not having to deal with that. I'm going to segue one more time. Is I have an off-grid cabin, and I mentioned that the other day, and I've had solar for 12 years and I have a little bit of a wind machine. You know, you think you're doing something very positive for the environment. Well, the truth is, I have to have batteries, and those batteries all need to, you know, they die. And then can they be recycled? No. So is that the greatest alternative? No. The solar panels, can you recycle those? No. There's a guy in Germany that's working on that. And it's one of those things that we're still working through. So again, that's practical side of things. So when you're looking at how we change things, if everybody's really proactive in their stance and literally doing the research on it, then to me, that's how we change things.
Yeah.
I realize, because I'm all about the individual in the collective to how we change.
Well, there's, you know, 0 point energy has been on the planet in one form or another for a long time. They just keep unliving the people that come up with it.
Yes, yeah, they get dead very easily.
They do get dead. They have these weird coincidences that happen to them. But I've heard that that's going to change, that we're actually going to have it in our hot little hands this
agree.
year sometime.
Yeah,
Yeah. And I think it's time. You know, the fact that so much, you know, Stephen Greer was on Patrick Beck David, huge podcast, really spilling the beans about the hidden technology. And I think that's wonderful, because the fact is that we've been paying for it, but we haven't been able to integrate it in our lives. And personally, I want my hovercraft.
I want to. I think it sounds like so much fun. As long as I go fast, I have to have fast.
You have to have fast. I don't care about fast. It's just, it's so frustrating to me that I am driving the same vehicle that I drove 50 years ago. You know, with rubber wheels, and you start the little engine. It's ridiculous. And when people say, oh, technology is just, you know, it's just blown up. No, it's not. Actually, it might be in hidden projects, but it's certainly not for us. We have not even scratched the surface of what's available to us because it's been hidden. So let's go back to the original, you know, what's going on the planet. What are your thoughts on the fact that we're ascending from 3D to 5D? And do you agree with that? If you do, what does that mean for you? And how do you perceive humanity is going to change in that shift?
That's such a great question, because it comes with a lot of emotion. Some people are very invested. And speaking of pets, sorry, I'm saying
I heard someone in the room.
my dog and my cat both are with me now because they have to be, and they're finding a moth and they're playing together. So I apologize if you hear ruckus. That's what's going on. It's just because they're full of love and light. Okay, Ascension is, to me, by the only way we're going to ascend, in my opinion, you don't have to believe any of this, is that it, first of all, it's individual. It's an individual energy of raising the frequencies. And how does that happen? It's from being happy, not getting caught up in the stories, because they're not your stories. If it's not your story, don't buy into it. And then you raise your frequencies, and then you have the ability to manifest what it is that you want to manifest, what you want to create, and moving and keep sliding over into a higher frequency. I personally believe we're in fourth dimension at this point. And yes, there are those who still operate in that third dimension. And then we have those moments where we have clarity, which is 5D. Truth, in my opinion, you don't have to buy this, is that if we were truly in fifth dimension, we would be in light bodies, and we're still in physical bodies. And so if that were to happen, we might have to leave our bodies and quote unquote die, get dead, to have that happen at this juncture in our evolution. Now, that's just my opinion. Some people are so invested, again, opinion. And I have, you know, in my circle, I have many friends that are, oh, I'm so done. And it's really the whole body. I'm so done with being in 3D. And I just can't wait for the Ascension. I can't wait for 5D. The problem with that, my opinion, is that it's always in the future. It's always in the what ifs when that happens, instead of staying right here in the present, right here, right now, and appreciating what we have right now in the eternal now. And that's how we create that frequency shift, is by being in the present as much as we can. It's like enjoying you, seeing your beautiful face, you know. And also, I'm going to segue for just a second. Everybody needs to thank Kimberly. I'm thanking Kimberly for creating this, because it's so much work to do a podcast, so much work to do this. And I thank you. I swami you for doing this. So I had to thank you. So it's being in these moments of being totally in the present that creates the evolution of our soul, that expansion of our soul. That's my personal feeling. And so I don't think it's going to be a one and done. Oh my God, we're in a whole new dimension. I don't have a body anymore. Everything is, you know, electric and vibrant. I believe those moments come in the expression and those feelings of being alive and grateful, and it's so exciting. That's when I feel it and I sense it and I know it to be true. And there's also the gift of being here now, right here now, because of, the tactile part of who we are, and tasting and touching and smelling and seeing and hearing. We got to, again, we don't have to do anything. My opinion is that the more we appreciate that, the more our frequencies evolve and that ascension happens. But
Yeah.
that's my take.
Yeah. I personally enjoy the tactile nature of having a body. And that might be because I don't have a memory of being in a light body. At least I can't conjure it up, although I've had a few little drifts here and there. But it's like it's fun. We get to touch stuff. We get to walk. We get in the water. We get to eat food. I mean, it's so rich with sensory stimuli that I really like it. And I wouldn't mind staying in a body with a little high and being in a little higher consciousness. Just because for me, what's going on the planet right now, I feel like I'm in a room with a bunch of toddlers.
That's well put. It's very well put.
And it's like I'm ready for something, more useful, more beneficial, more expanded, more about the potential of humanity instead of all this constant squabbling and fighting and da 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 da. It doesn't interest me. It's kind of like really boring at this point. So I'm excited about the potential that we have, and we have this playground of this planet that is extraordinary. I know that you're a real outdoor girl. I'm a real outdoor girl. You love to ski. I love to kayak.
Yep.
So being able to be in a body and have those experiences in a higher vibrational state, surrounded by other people who are looking at potential, that sounds like heaven to me.
Yeah. Well, and you're creating it. You are already doing that. I love that. You are creating that by having this platform, by speaking out, getting your guests. You are creating that. So in essence, that reality is already being formed. So you'll soon, and this is part of the event. This shift is what I feel is happening, is that cacophony will become dim and disappear, because all those people who signed up for that job will help clear that out as you create this this experience. And then I can talk, can impact that many more people. I just get so excited.
Yeah, it is an exciting time. So let's talk about, because you're so connected, when you are interested in manifesting something in your life, like you think, oh, I want to make that happen. What's your process?
I act like it's already been done, right? That it's here, whether it's a new pair of skis, I know that's something simple, to new friends, creating some new contacts, creating more in my, more clientele in my business, creating, being able to speak on your platform. I just trust. I put out the intention. I trust, and see, this goes back to what I talked about before, is the soul ray frequency. I'm very cognizant about staying in my light, and always in my light and connected. And when I'm in that, and then I put out that intention of this is what I'd like to create, then I let it go. And yeah, there are times when I get in my head. Okay. I'm not perfect. I get in my head. And then Sanders, I'm the Sherlock Holmes of my own thoughts again. Go in, ferret them out, clear them out. And then I just trust that my higher self is more in control than I am. And that situation will then manifest to my highest and best good.
Yeah. You know what I found over the course of my life and looking back on it now, when I start focusing on something that I think sounds really fun, or I really want to do, or I'd really like, what I end up getting is infinitely better than I ever would have given to myself.
Absolutely.
And that flows. Why does that happen? And when I think about it, I'll be personal for a minute. I'm a fanatical kayaker. It is like my happy place. When I drop down into the water, I'm just like, it's just delicious. And I always thought I need to find a high mountain lake somewhere in a small little town so I can be out on that lake every day, right? That was my dream. What I've ended up in, and I didn't even realize it until just about 2 months ago, where I live now is so much better for my passion of kayaking than I ever would have dreamed. I mean, it's so much more interesting than a high mountain lake because of the diversity. I have several choices every day about where I wanna go. It's tropical, it's filled with wildlife, it's just amazing. It is so much more than I would have crafted on my own. So why does that happen?
Because you let go. You let go of
Oh,
the control. So when we try and control things, it keeps us in resistance. And when we keep it in resistance, then we don't allow the creativity of our oversoul, our higher self, source energy to create what it is that is in our highest and best good, which is what happened to you, which is beautiful. It's a perfect example.
yeah,
That,
it is, and it's weird. It's not just me. I've seen that happen over and over and over with people, and it's almost as though you decide, "Oh, that would be really cool," and then you get busy doing other stuff, and
yeah,
then you go, "Oh, wow, there it is."
yeah, exactly. Because you let go. You said,
Mhm.
"Hey, I'm out. I'm." Now, this is my big thing. Let it go. Let it go. Let it go. Because I'm so physical and how I work with people. I'm always moving my hands. I've learned to be real subtle because people come up and say, "Who are you working on now?" I go, "Well, that chipmunk over there." But I'm very visual, and so I'm always moving in that energy. When you're in that energy field of creation, and then you let go, and when you're in resistance, seriously, I invite everybody to do that. Let go. Say, okay, I'm holding on the reins too tight. Let go. And then things happen, and you're back in the flow of the river of life, and then things happen. They
Yeah.
manifest.
Yeah, it's that resistance, that hanging on, that how can I make that happen? And that's one thing we're taught here on this planet. It's indoctrinated in us from little kids, particularly in the US. You got to work really hard for stuff.
Yeah. We don't. We can play.
Yeah.
And you probably found this too, is that when you're in your joy and you're having fun, like with your kayaking, and you're doing what just feels so good, the next perfect, we'll use your platform here, the next perfect guest will show up on your stage, and you're going, I didn't even have to do anything. It's because you were in your joy.
Mhm.
You're in your jive, your flow. That
Yeah. Which shows the importance of finding that which you're really passionate about, which you could do all day long for free just because you love it. Because when you're there, that's when magic in other areas happens.
Oh, it's so true. It
Mhm.
in every arena, it just is so true. And there's so much that we can do that isn't costly. I mean, you may be an avid reader, read more. And now we have access to free libraries online or at your local library to pickleball. That's one of my new faves. And there are free courts around that you can go play. Skiing, of course, is a little more expensive. I get that. But there are things that you can still do that are energizing, drawing, learning a new way to cook. I mean, you're going to have to eat anyway, so you might as well try something new and creative. It's finding that spot within you that says yes, 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 yes.
Yeah. All right, I wanna move on to the topic of soul rays.
Oh, okay.
And you're gonna need to start from the beginning because although I kind of touched on it when I reviewed your website, I know you've written a book on it, but it really I perceive it's almost the foundation of the intuitive work that you do. I'm wondering, do you walk into diners and you can see everybody's illnesses when you walk in, and does that make you crazy?
When I first started, yes. But I learned a long time ago, and this is for anybody who's intuitive. I'm Matt. Oh, what's wrong? I can't tell on this camera. Just for those who are watching, I've been on a computer in 11 years, and because of EMF sensitivity, so I'm on an iPad, and it's very disorienting here. So just ignore that. So if you're intuitive at all, get in the habit of imagining a light switch, and you turn it on, you're going, okay, I'm connected, and you turn it off so that when you go into a restaurant, a store, you're not bombarded by everybody else's energy. That's really, really important in terms of being a sensitive or an empathic person. That's very important. The next thing that I learned years ago was, again, to recognize it's somebody else's story and not take it on. So many people, when they work with their intuition or in healing, they become very tired. It's because they tap into those fields and then take them on. Not a good thing. So the separation came, and I guess this is going to be a long story short. I went to a gal because I was always in the learning stages, and she was recommended to me, and I was talking to her, and she goes, close your eyes for a second. And I said, okay. And we became friends, and because she was a friend of a friend. She goes, close your eyes. She goes, what color do you see around you? And I told her. And she goes, do you see any other colors? I go, yeah, there's this too. And she goes, oh, that's cool. And that's it. Nothing. I got nothing. Right? I go, that didn't do any good. So then when I started doing readings on a regular basis, I started asking each person, their higher self, what is your soul wave? What is your frequency? And then a pattern started to develop with everybody's beingness. And I'm going, I can't make this stuff up because it's not my stuff. And so I started writing it down. And then I kept going, okay, how many of them are there? And like I said yesterday in the podcast, I mean, there could be 100, there could be 1,000, but in my world, there are 12 because it's easier to work with. And so the 12 rays started to develop, and within those rays, there is a spectrum of the people that come to me as clients, and because the other rays would not be, they wouldn't be asking somebody like me what I thought or what I felt or what I saw. And so from there, I started writing it down, and we'll use the blue ray frequency as a great example because it's the number one frequency on the planet. Blue is the throat, has to do with the thyroid meridian, which happens to has a big connection to despair, despondency, depression, and addictions. Of all the rays, all 12 rays, it is the highest likelihood to have addictions, addictive behavior. But the number one ray on the planet is important because if you look at the world as a whole right now, what are we about? We're about technology, but we're about communication. We have the ability to communicate in the last 20 years, 30 years, like we've never been able to communicate. I talked to a woman this morning from Rwanda. How cool is that? Right? That didn't happen easily when you and I were growing up. That just didn't happen. So we are in this world of communication now. So that's why the number one ray is on the planet, because all these people are here to help communicate. And the gift of the blue ray is communication, greatest gift. But with each one, you have the shadow side. It's their greatest challenge is to communicate and to listen, to hear, and to share that ability. So blue rays are teachers, politicians, singers, actors, anybody who's out selling. They are the communicators. My dad was a blue ray. He's no longer on the planet. And once I figured all this stuff out decades ago, it's like, no wonder he's an alcoholic, right? My dad was an alcoholic. He was a happy drunk, don't get me wrong, but he still drank a lot. My older son is also a blue ray, and when he's not in his creative vibe, he goes down into not quite depression, but he definitely goes down that dark hole. And I've had to throw him energetic ropes to go down and crawl up out of the rabbit hole because blue rays have that tendency. Now, again, there are 12 different rays. The majority of colors that come to me, the frequencies are green, which corresponds to the heart, the thymus gland, lungs, and it's all about relationships, greatest gift, greatest challenge, relationships, communication, and indigo rays are all about intuition, being visionaries, greatest gift, greatest challenge. The crown chakra, violet or white. In my case, it's violet when it comes to rays. They are the seers. They have the ability to just see things, but they come in and experience 100 lives in one. So it's not an easy ray. I'll give you an example of somebody from that is Neil Donald Walsh, who wrote Conversations with God. He is all violet, because he lived under a bridge and he became very, very wealthy. And he wanted to experience it all. Another one is Byron Katie. She's also violet ray. And I can give you lots of examples of each of these. And then you have the silver ray, the gold ray, the rainbow ray, and then we have crystal ray, and we have gray rays. Gray rays aren't really rays. Those are the people you were asking about in the world today, the ones that are ruling the planet.
The stinkers.
They are the gray rays. And I did a whole thing on the presidents, from Washington to now, and how many of their rays, they're always yellow, which I didn't mention yellow, did I? Those the warriors that you can empower people or disempower people. And a lot of those have all been taken over by the gray rays. And they're the blue rays, like Bill Clinton. He was a blue before he became a gray. And he is a communicator, great communicator. He's very charismatic. And then you have the indigos like John F. Kennedy, who was a visionary ahead of his time. So it's just fascinating when you learn more about this. But then the rays indicate to me where there might be an imbalance. Blue rays, thyroid shows up so often. I mean, it's just incredible. So again, with that, you need to sing in the shower. You need to dance, be creative, take some iodine or kelp as an example.
Yeah. So let's ask this question really quick. Autumn Gill, do you need someone to be in front of you to know their color, or can you sense it long distance?
99% of all the work, maybe 100% now because of my move, of what I do with people is all long distance.
Yeah.
Everything's on the phone. It's just what I do. So I can read anybody, anywhere, anytime. Doesn't matter. As long as I have their permission, because that's very key to me. People say, well, can you work on so-and-so? Nope. Unless they're a child. I'm very clear about that. That's infringing on their trajectory. If they came to me and asked, not a problem. So I can read somebody's color without impacting them because I'm not working on them directly. I'm just looking at their frequency. So I'm okay with that. But I do it all the time, long distance.
Yeah. So how does a ray, like the gray rays, I don't understand how a gray ray can take over another color. How does that happen? And who are the gray rays?
They're really not a ray. In fact, I even put that in my book, Soul Rays. And it's like, and you can find it on Amazon. It's on, I did it, I don't know, 10, 11 years ago, whatever. And the gray rays, it's a frequency, it's an energy. If you think about it, if you get around negative people and that's all you see, that's all you feel, then you get caught up into their story. Well, it happens with those who rise up within the power structures, and they want to be at the top of the food chain. And we can just use any president, right? And they're still puppets, sorry, but then they want the power, they want the prestige. It's even more important than money. Then you have the upper echelon, which is what you and I talked about before. Those people that we never know behind the curtain, behind, the Wizard of Oz people back there that bring in well, if you do this and you do that, we'll give you this, we'll give you that. And then they become immersed in the murkiness, the muddiness, the darkness of what that represents, so that their soul, and I can list a lot of people that would probably upset people that have been taken over. But if you look at so many of the global world leaders, then you will see them through new eyes, if you start looking at it in that perspective. And then you're going to go, no, I'm not voting for that person. No, a voting system doesn't really work anyway. So, okay, what am I going to do about it? And that's why when somebody says, well, they're such a good person, I go, well, if you saw them through my lens, you might not think that.
So you can see someone, a politician, and I'm not going to name anybody because what difference?
Trust me, I could go, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah.
So you can see them and you can tell. So they've essentially dimmed their light to take on this other vibration. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, imagine walking into, imagine that there was, because I've got cows just to the west of me, and my dog, of course, rolled into cow. He's white and
that's good stuff. That is doggy favorite stuff.
Exactly. So imagine that same kind of concept where individuals crave that power structure, and then they roll in that, and then it becomes all over them, and the stench and the stink, but they don't see it anymore because they like the power. They like what it brings them, and the favors and the dance that most people on the planet don't see. They don't believe it. They don't want to believe that something of that caliber of, I don't like using critical words, but of that heinous of crimes that this group does, that they do, that they exist, but they do, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, and I think for humans, it's hard for us to imagine negative behavior that we would never dream of
Right.
doing ourselves. And so it's when I first found out things that are going on the planet, I was like, no, people wouldn't do that because I wouldn't do that.
Right.
And what I had to do is expand my awareness that there's just all kinds of energy out there.
Yeah.
So, which leads us to another question, which is really, I love this question. Hope you do too.
Okay.
Do you think there's aliens on the planet?
Absolutely.
In other words, people from other planets, and I don't even know if we should call them aliens. They're just people. They just weren't born on Earth, and they probably look a little different than us.
Uh-huh. Oh
So,
yeah.
why don't you tell me what you think about that? And do you think they're living underground?
I definitely, there is a group that does live underground in my view, that have been there, and in a lot of ways they've been here longer than we have, I feel, because they went underground because the earth's been hit throughout the millennia by asteroids and comets. And I mean, we got that huge giant hole in the Yucatan just to prove it. You can see where we got hit. The dinosaurs were here and gone in a cataclysmic event. So yes, I think that there were those that then went underground and still have an experience down there, because again, if we're in a hologram, if we're in a game, we can create anything. So of course the earth is bigger than, in fact, there's a guy, I'm just segueing, by the name of Dr. Brooks Agnew, another guy maybe for you, who was, I saw him in several lectures a couple years ago, and he was a great man to talk to. He was doing an exploration with a group out of Russia, and they were going, and then COVID hit, so the whole thing got nixed. But they had a boat, one of the ice crusher boats, and to be honest with you, I don't know if there's a specific name for that, but anyway, and they were going up to the North Pole because it's someplace that's always enshrouded in clouds. And so they were going up because they feel that there is this place that goes into the earth that's hollow, where there is existence down there, because there are all these creatures that are showing up that haven't been on the planet for millions of years. So he's a very cool guy and brilliant man. So I'm going, oh, I like this. I mean, I'd already heard about the underground, but this was a new way of looking at it. So yes, I do believe there is a hollow earth. There's because again, there are so many possibilities. So back to everyday people that are hybrids. Yeah, I think there's definitely that. You can see different pictures of people that have, and I have a heart-shaped face too, but sorry, I had something in my eye. What's backwards? I could see it, but I'm going, what is it? That have a very almost round and then real oval, like a gray face, but their eyes are very big. To me, those are souls that are hybrids or have come onto the earth and have been born into a physical body or have done an exchange, like a walk-in exchange. So there's definitely that. I mean, this is definitely out there thinking, but in my world, everything is possible. There are no things that are off limits.
Yeah. For the record, it's particularly for those of you who are watching, I have not spoken with a single intuitive medium channel who doesn't think there are other races on this planet other than Earth humans. So it's a there's a consistency
Yeah.
in the opinion. Okay, so Autumn Guild has another question. I hope this isn't too personal, but seeing what you do you even vote, or is no one up to your standards?
It's really sad because I came from a very patriotic family. My dad and my grandpas were involved in politics, had roles, mayors, and I stopped voting, oh golly, about 2008. I'll just share, I went to Ron Paul's, he came to Washington, and I got to meet him and shake his hand. I got a picture with him, and I loved him. And I still believed at that time that things within our government were possible. And then, of course, everything got changed and shifted. And then I started learning more, and I became more skeptical and more discerning and more critical about it. And I don't mean critical in a bad way, I mean like deductive reasoning on this. And so I vote locally, in terms of local things. Like if I know somebody who's running for the the police or the sheriff or whatever. But in terms of the bigger picture, I'm very skeptical. I don't believe that our vote counts. I think it's been rigged. I've seen too many things where it shows where literally a needle has been shifted in. I'll use Oregon as a great example. And of course, we have all the negative naysayers that say, I'm crazy, I've got three heads. I'm going, well, the data's showing it. This has always been a red state. And now all of a sudden, that's interesting. Everything in one election changed over. We have 36 counties, 34, 36, I think, and 30 of them voted for one particular governor this last time. Only 6 voted, and they saw numbers, high numbers in these counties. Yeah, they're bigger, but then the other candidate won. That's a little suspect to me. So to answer that question, the answer is no. And that sounds very unpatriotic, I realize, but it's not the system that works anymore, unfortunately.
Yeah. I'm wondering if there is a way when you don't have a population, and I don't take offense at this, you guys, but let me kind of lay it out. I think humans, we are advancing, but I don't necessarily know that we're mature. A lot of us are mature. I think that we're still very self-focused, and not in a way that is not in the healthiest way. And I think that we don't necessarily have a unity consciousness, and which is very attractive to me, to have a unity consciousness. In other words, a shared goal, a shared version of reality, a shared belief system in the development and the creative extension of a culture. That's what looks attractive to me. So we have this huge population. Let's just bring it down to the US. If you're from another country, it could very well work for your country as well. Is there any way to have a governmental system where we have, one guy at the top and then, some representatives? When the population gets so big, I feel like the dilution factor becomes, it almost takes away the power from the person, because like, I'm just one person. What can I do? I'll just turn on the TV and eat Doritos and have a beer and zone out because I can't do anything anyway. And I think that the system we have in itself can be demotivating from being participatory because we're so many and our representatives are so few. Does that make sense?
Oh, it's perfect. Yeah, I couldn't have said it better. You said it brilliantly. And I have to share when you were saying that, it's because your unity consciousness comes from your oversoul, your higher soul of who you are and how you came into this life. You came in with that awareness, that presence, so that you can share it with others. You didn't lose that when you came from this big space into a little body. You didn't lose that. And that's why it's so important to you. And that's why it's so frustrating or disillusioning to you to have it otherwise, because we live in the world of selfies and everything. Yeah,
I know.
oh, he's like, is that really so I agree with that. If we can move towards that consciousness, it would be fabulous. And I believe it's happening one day at a time, one person at a time. It's coming. It's just like having that gentleman bring me that book. I mean, was that not an act of graciousness and kindness? And it was just from literally just from the goodness of his heart to do that for me. Book is amazing too, by the way. And that's how we change it. And that's how we then become more unity involved. I also agree with you that I think that we are going to come down more and more to grassroots levels, state levels, and then even counties. I mean, our Constitution was set up, I don't know how many people know this, but that the states have their own unity. They are their own country to themselves, as are the counties within the states. We have those rights to do that and separate and say, no, we are our own unified state. So I can see that happening over the next couple of years. And everybody's going, oh my God, it's like scary, but it's definitely a possibility of, for me, my perspective, a positive change.
Yeah. I personally, Candy, don't see any other solution other than to start locally.
Yeah, it's local.
I don't see anything else that can work. It's all gonna fall apart or just end up mired in corruption.
Mhm. I agree
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
I
Okay, we have a question from Glantum M. Do we all pass away at an appointed time? What is your perspective on this?
I have a very clear perspective on
I
it.
do too. I wonder what yours is.
I believe we know exactly. We may not consciously know, but we know exactly when we are going to transition out of this body. Now, you and I both, I would like another 100 years. I'm on board with that because I want to see what happens. I don't want to lose everything and start all over again. That's where the concept of walking comes in. But yeah, do we all pass away at what we feel our higher self guides us to? Yes. Now, there are times when we can circumnavigate that, where somebody takes their life. That I don't see anything as negative. I don't think anybody's going to be damned. It's just a learning process. It's just an experience, but it does short circuit the time frame that you had set up for yourself to be here. So yes, I do believe that we have that time frame, and so that's why I never worry. Well, are you going to die tomorrow, or is this going to happen? No, no. Life is good. You're not. You're here for a while. You're
Yeah.
here.
What's funny is that I think that we maybe have a few exit points along the way and we can take them if the timing's right. But I actually have a number in my head. I can see my life. I can see the line of my life. And I didn't even really realize that when I was younger, what I was seeing. But I could see I was this certain age and then I turned and then I knew and I always knew, and I don't even know why. I mean, when I was in my 20s, I knew that my important work was gonna start when I was in my 50s and beyond.
Oh, I love that.
I always knew it, and then I see a number in that timeline that's in my head that's a ways away of when, "Okay, then I'm done," which is and I don't know if it's gonna come true, who knows, but isn't it weird that I can actually visually I can see it in my head.
No,
So,
that's not weird at all to me. I think it's
yeah,
great because
prob
you're focusing in when we're still young, vibrant, young and vibrant. That's how I look at this. So you should have lots of energy to do what you came here to do. So
yeah,
I think that's perfect because I see your timeline is way out there, way out
yeah,
there. Now I will add something that I think is very, very fascinating when it comes to death, because really there is no death. It's just a transition. And hopefully most people can see that we go through grief and all this, but working with different individuals, I can be working with somebody who is close to checking off the planet, or somebody's checking in on their spouse or a grandmother, whatever. And I can see their life force and how it resonates. I always do a scale of 1 to 10. So if their life force is at a 7 or an 8, or if they're a 2, what's interesting, we can bring in a death, a birth of a child, and we know, oh, it's going to be within this amount of time. But a death, my dad hung on at basically just above 0 because his will to live was so strong that he willed his body to live. So he expanded and extended his life force. Probably he exited exactly when he was supposed to, but it was his sheer will that overrode his very decrepit body. So I think it's a fascinating thing. I've watched it happen multiple times throughout my life. And so it's an interesting thing.
yeah, I think being a hospice worker would be so interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not my thing, but I applaud all those that do.
Yeah, I think it would be fascinating because it's such an important moment. And to be honest with you, I don't understand why on this planet, at least in this culture, in Western cultures, we don't spend time teaching people what happens when they transition to prepare them. It's like, okay, this is going to happen. You're going to have choices.
Ah,
It's silly to me that this is one of the major events in a life
yeah.
and yet we pretend like, first of all, it's never gonna happen, and second, that there's not good direction for what to do when it does happen, you
You
know?
said that better, and I've been there through multiple deaths throughout my life, interestingly enough. And what was very important to me, my husband wasn't he wasn't as conscious about this, but he followed suit for me, is that I wanted him to have a conscious death. You know, he was diagnosed with cancer, and every time we got him better, he would create something bigger until I finally said, okay, I'm out. It's your job, your story. So when the time came, you know, because at that time in most people's lives, they join hospice and they put them on lorazepam, they put them on morphine. I was going to say heroin. Heroin's actually probably better than morphine. And then they're not conscious anymore. They have no concept of what's happening. Yes, we do that for us so we don't feel them like they're suffering. You know, up the meds so that we don't feel it. And yet having them conscious is a huge gift. And my husband was conscious as he exited, and it was an incredible experience. And I wrote about it in my third book that I did. And I learned so much from that when my dad died, I made sure that he was also conscious so that he was talking with me when I was with him. So I think it's such an important, like you said, it's an exit, and we all need to know more about it, because when I was with my dad, I could see all these people showed up, which included my great grandparents, whom I'd never met. They were gone before I was born. And I was talking to my great grandmother, and I got to know her in that moment as she came forth to be there to gather my dad to take him on the other side. So it's an amazing journey if we would just look at it through a new lens.
And it's so exciting. Oh, that is so beautifully put. Thank you so much. And you know, our time is up. I can't believe it feels like it's been 5 minutes. I love talking with you.
I agree. It's been such a gift. And thank you again. You know, Kimberly trusted. I was presented to her and she said yes, and here we are. And it's been wonderful.
Yeah, we've had a ball. So how do we find out more about you?
I think I shared this, but I don't know if it made it to the recording, is that I'm off all social media. I got off all social media during COVID. So the only place you can find me now is my website or Amazon for my books. And you can call me, you can text me, you can email me. I'm kind of bad on emails. And it's just my name, CandiaSanders.com.
Okay, and I have that listed in the description box down below. This has been such a treat. I just have such a good time. I hope you come back and we can do this again.
I would love to. I
Sometime
really
in the future.
appreciate the invitation. And
All
thank you. And thank you for all you do. Seriously, for
Oh.
all you do. Because if you haven't done this, which I have, it's so much work. And so I appreciate what you're doing.
Thank you very much. And thank you everyone for joining us. I hope you found it as fun as I did. All right, everyone. Thank you. Good night. We'll see you next time.
Night.